CBS Sports.
High drive, center field, off the wall, grand slam. This is magnificent.
Got a fantasy question? Email fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. Get ready to win your league.
Where fantasy becomes reality.
Now here's Frank, Scott, Chris, and Adam.
Hey there. Hope you're enjoying the weekend. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Saturday, March 27th. Frank Stanfield joined by Scott White, and this is our last bonus mailbag podcast of the off season. Thanks again to everybody for leaving 5-star reviews on Apple and, of course, emailing in all of your questions throughout draft season. Hope your drafts are going well. Of course, this is a huge weekend for fantasy baseball drafts. Opening day right around the corner. If you are watching on YouTube, you might notice that I am wearing this flashy polo shirt. I got tired of Scott showing me up. So you know what? I thought I'd step it up a little bit. And now, Scott, you're wearing a Marlins hat. You're a Braves fan. It's like, imagine me coming on here and wearing a Red Sox hat or something. Come on, man.
Not quite the same. Not quite the same as the Yankees Red Sox rivalry. But you wear Rangers hats. Pirates. I think I've seen you wear Pirates gear before. You know, kind of just a baseball fan. And if I want to wear this teal colored shirt, like the Marlins, the Marlins hat just goes with it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the matching look there. Let's jump right in. We'll hit some Apple Podcast review questions right here at the top. And this one is from More Kokomo. How can we possibly play More Kokomo? We play it every Friday, and it's a Kokomo Friday theme song. So I think we played just the right amount of Kokomo. Hey, Luke, Pete, Chris, and Giancarlo.
Voit, Alonso, Davis, and Giancarlo. Are those like the home run leaders the last 4 years?
That's what I'm guessing. Makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm in a 12-team 7x7 head-to-head categories league with OBP, hits, and Ks as the added offensive categories. K to walk rate, quality starts, and saves plus holds on the pitching side. I typically look at points league rankings since the categories reflect a points league, and I normally punt steals. I made some trades, but now I have the 8th overall pick, 3 third-round picks, 1 fourth-round pick, and 1 sixth-round pick. I already know my 8th overall pick will be one of Garrett Cole, Shane Bieber, or Jacob deGrom. Curious as to who you guys would take if you had 5 picks between 29th and 41st. All right, Scott, so assume you take one of those pitchers in the first round. You now have 5 picks between in the third and fourth rounds. How would you divvy those up?
Well, okay, obviously this isn't a keeper league, so that helps. That makes it easier. Okay, so your starting pitcher, 5 picks between 29 and 41. Boy, so really all the pitchers we would count on, we would think of as being like Cy Young contenders are already gone at this point, obviously. Well, obviously, if Corey Seager's there, I would take him. DJ LeMahieu's there, I would take him. Probably take Alex Bregman if he's there. Don't know that I'd take all 3, use 3 of those 5 picks on those 3, but those would earn a little tick up from me. And then I would look at what pitchers are there. If it's Maeda, if it's Brandon Woodruff, who else is in that range? I know Zach Gallen isn't anymore. Yeah, those would probably be the main 2, Maeda and Woodruff, if they're there.
Jack Flaherty's right on the cutoff, but he might be there.
Yeah, he might be there. It's a long shot, but he might.
Kershaw's another one. He has an ADP of 31.
Yeah. Beyond those pitchers are like Lance Lynn, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Steven Strasburg. I don't think it's a bad idea to reach into that group if you want to be pitcher heavy, but it is a little reachy. So, at least consider what other hitters are there. Maybe if like a Marcell Ozuna is there, that's somebody I draft occasionally in that range. That's probably what I'd think of doing.
Yeah, I think if you take one of Cole, Bieber, or deGrom, and you have 5 picks in this range, I would probably use at least 2 of them on starting pitchers, and then you would use the other 3 on hitters. So through your first 6 picks by 41st overall, you would have 3 hitters and 3 pitchers. Just a few other hitters. I'm not sure if you mentioned Kyle Tucker, Scott. I'm perfectly fine with him.
Yeah, he's punting steals, so I kind of passed over the base stealers.
That's true. That makes sense. Marcell Ozuna can make sense for a punt steals build. Anyone else?
Whit Merrifield, if you weren't punting steals, I would consider in this range. But again, if you are, then never mind.
Yep, Bregman, I agree with you. Anthony Rendon, we talk a lot about. Perfectly fine with either one of those. Rafael Devers, if those other 2 third basemen are gone, I'm cool with that as well. This next one is from the Mander 5, 12-team, 5x5 roto with 3 outfielders, 2 utility spots, 5 starting pitchers, and 4 relief pitcher spots. I pick 5th overall. This league has a pitching innings cap of 1,350 for the year. I'm wondering how that affects overall draft strategy. I'm hoping to go DeGrom with another pitcher in my first 2 picks. Overall, would your draft strategy change with this setup? I know Chris has mentioned recently the average roto team 2 years ago had around 1,300 innings pitched. So considering you have to start 5 starting pitchers and 4 relief pitchers, it's probably going to be a reach for you even to get to 1,350, I'd imagine, Scott.
Yeah, I would think so too. I'm not used to seeing an innings cap. The traditional innings limit for a standard roto league is 900. Innings minimum, I should say, is 900. So, if Chris researched and found that most teams got to 1,300 going with 9 pitchers, you got to figure most of them were starting fewer than 4 relievers. So even more innings being added on with the starting pitchers. I don't think it's something you should really worry about.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would just draft normally. If you want to use your first 2 picks on starting pitchers, and that was your strategy regardless, just coming into the season, then sure, I think you should remain with that. And we love pitching, so I'm not opposed to that idea. This one's from Max Man in a CBS daily 10-team roto keeper league with OPS instead of batting average. I can keep Shohei Ohtani for a 9th rounder. I know this is higher than ADP, but the upside is so tantalizing given the league format is a 9th rounder too steep a price. For what it's worth, my other keepers are Shane Bieber, Chris Paddock, Zach Plesac, and Ian Happ. Scott, I came on here the other day and I said I might use a 5th or 6th round pick on Shohei Ohtani in a daily lineup league where you can reap all of his benefits. But this is a team league, so it's a little bit more shallow. I think I would still do it for a 9th rounder.
Yeah, that makes sense. And even if it wasn't a daily league, like Ohtani's the sort of player that somebody might reach 4 or 5 rounds for. So if you're really high on him and if you think the upside is enormous, which it is, I don't have a problem keeping him in the 9th round. Obviously, it would depend on if I'm throwing back some amazing keeper instead. But when you're drafting in the 9th round, that's not really a make or break stage of the draft where you would have major regrets giving up that pick, I feel like. So certainly because it's a daily, I think it's fine keeping Ohtani in the 9th round. But even if it wasn't, I don't think it would be the worst idea.
Yep, I'm with you. Let's do it. Let's keep Shohei Ohtani there. This one's from T Money, 12-team 5x5 roto league. I can keep 2 players. I've decided on keeping Luis Robert in the Robert Robert. I'm just going to message a White Sox broadcaster and hopefully they respond to me because
I think we know they called him Robert, right?
Yeah, and then I mentioned someone last week and sent me a snippet of an article that
from when Robert was 19 and saying in Cuba they pronounce it Robert, but since then Robert himself has been calling himself Luis Robert. So
okay,
he must decide he liked it. I don't know.
Robert. We will go with Robert for now. I'm going to listen back to a spring training broadcast and just see how they say it. Would you keep Dylan Bundy in the 20th or Nick Madrigal in the 22nd to help lock down steals?
Madrigal to lock down steals. No, I'm not. I would definitely keep Bundy in the 20th. It's a better discount. And while I'm hopeful Madrigal will run, we haven't really seen him do that much in the majors, and I don't think it's a guarantee. But really, that more than anything, it's just that the discount for Bundy here is so much greater.
Yeah, I'm not even a huge Dylan Bundy fan, but in the 20th round, that's a no-brainer. Keep him with Luis Robert, and there you go. This next one's from CDM083. My keepers are Bauer, Kershaw, Lynn, Machado, and Ozuna in a 10-team head-to-head points league. I have the 6th pick in our draft this weekend. What would be your approach from this spot? I am leaning towards attacking pitching heavy and then filling out my hitters after I have my top 5. So he already has a top 3, Scott, of Trevor Bauer, Clayton Kershaw, and Lance Lynn. I guess you can use 2 of your first 3 picks from the 6th spot, and you'll have 5 there. It's a points league. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the fact you already have 2 early round hitters in Machado and Ozuna. I've said before that if you went in a points league just drafting straight pitchers until they were all gone, I don't think that's necessarily the wrong approach. There are a few first round hitters that I think need to be taken before that second wave of pitching comes in. Basically, in a points league, I go Bieber, DeGrom, Cole to start out. But then once they're gone, before you dip into the next tier at pitcher, I would make sure Juan Soto, Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, Ronald Acuna, Fernando Tatis, Jose Ramirez, Freddy Freeman, and Christian Yelich. I'd make sure all of them are gone before I dipped into the next tier. But, again, if you just went pitcher until all the good ones are gone, even ignored that last bit of advice, I don't think it would play out so poorly for you, as long as you're somebody who knows you're going to play the waiver wire all year and scoop up hitters as they emerge. So I'm fine with that. Maybe all the good pitchers were kept, and the best you're looking at in this draft are guys like Dylan Bundy. I don't know. I suppose that's possible. In which case, you might want to think that a little. But assuming there are some good ones out there, I think I would definitely emphasize pitching with your first few picks.
Yeah, it's a 10-team league, 5 keepers each. Top 50 players or so could be kept. But I would agree. I mean, even in a shallower league, that means there's going to be even more hitters available that are awesome, and you need to stand out in pitching that much more. So I agree. I would be all right using my first 2 picks, 2 of my first 3, something like that on starting pitching. This next one's from West 6th. I'm in the final season of a 12-team head-to-head categories league. How does that work? All right, we're going to wrap up our league after the season. Interesting. Who should I take as my 3 keepers? Manny Machado in round 1, JT Realmuto in round 2, Zach Gallen in round 2. Sorry, bud. Kyle Tucker in round 3, Sonny Gray in round 10, Dustin May in round 20, Matthew Boyd in round 20, or Patrick Corbin in round 22. He needs 3 of those, rather.
Well, not sure you're winning the final season of your league. Okay, so the only one that seems obvious to me is Kyle Tucker in round 3. Not that it's amazing value, but it's fine. At least you're not overpaying for him.
Mm-hmm.
Manny Machado in round 1, I think I'd lean toward that. Then you're giving up your first round pick and maybe somebody really good slipped through. I
mean, Scott, we don't like Patrick Corbin, but in round 22,
yeah, I guess you kind of have to. There's not really.
You just have to.
There's not really a great alternative. Yeah, all right. Throw back Machado in round 1. Definitely Realmuto in round 2. It's just you don't. I imagine there are going to be good players getting thrown back that you'll rather use those picks on.
Mm-hmm.
So keep Tucker in round 3. Keep Patrick Corbin in round 22, and I guess Sonny Gray in round 10. Even though
that's
I'm not so high on him either.
Yeah, don't love those keepers, but good luck, buddy. West 6th, Tucker, Gray, and Patrick Corbin. This one's from JP Garn. Who are some high K per 9 middle relief names that weren't around last year and might be called up after spring training this year? Players like Devon Williams. All right, well, this is going to be interesting. I play in a complex keeper roto league with 11 offensive categories and 11 pitching categories and need to find some sneaky good holds guys with high strikeout rates. So obviously, Scott, it's a little bit easier to answer the holds part of it and the strikeout part. I mean, predicting.
Well, here's the thing about Devon Williams. I think this will sum it up.
Yeah.
I had not heard of Devon Williams until last September. So, he was already up for a while before I had even heard of him. Because that's just like these guys so often come out of nowhere. Sometimes they're good starting pitching prospects that just get moved to relief, like a Josh Hader, for instance. But a lot of times they come out of nowhere. Somebody who might not make the roster and hasn't had an awesome spring, and we've mentioned him as a potential closer candidate at some point this year, is David Bedner, right? Isn't that the name for the Pirates?
For the Pirates, yep.
Bednar.
Yep.
Seems like he could emerge as that guy, but it's you kind of just wait and see those guys when they emerge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't really think there's going to be any shortage of them. Like, of course, you want higher strikeout relievers, and a lot of people know those names. Garrett Crochet comes to mind, Michael Kopech. I mean, these are prospects that are going to start in the bullpen for the White Sox, and at least for Kopech, maybe work his way up to a rotation spot, but they could, get tons of swings and misses, tons of strikeouts. And the other names that we've mentioned before that are just solid setup guys, Chad Green, Tanner Rainey is one that comes to mind, Jake Diekman for the Oakland A's. I'm looking at K per 9 over the past 2 years for relievers. Tyler Matzek, who is on the Braves, actually has a very high strikeout rate.
Yeah, he was great last year and is a multi-inning reliever, which is nice. He's, sometimes he goes just one inning, but he's often a multi-inning reliever.
Tyler Duffy for the Minnesota Twins is another one who gets a ton of strikeouts. Adam Ottavino, who is now with the Red Sox, he might work his way into some saves as well. Trevor May is now with the New York Mets, should get a ton of holds and has a good strikeout rate. Scott Barlow and Josh Stallmont with the Kansas City Royals should be setting up for Greg Holland.
Stallmont especially, a lot of strikeout potential. The whip was high last year, but that he could make strides with that potentially.
Rafael Dolis with the Blue Jays. I mean, there's one man down now. We know Kirby Yates is not going to be he's going to be out for I think the entire season for the Blue Jays. So Jordan Romano moves up to the 9th. Rafael Dolis likely in the 8th. Giovanni Gallegos with the Cardinals. We've talked about him a lot.
Lucas Sims. I mean, he might be drafted as a closer candidate, but if they do go Amir Garrett, then Sims will be setting him up.
Jose Alvarado is one that I keep gravitating towards, and he's actually my pick to lead the Phillies in saves this year. I mean, I don't know if that's a bold prediction or not, but I just don't think Archie Bradley and who's the other gentleman? Hector Neris. I don't think they're very good. So I'm hoping for Jose Alvarado. And that's the last actual Apple Podcast review question we received, Scott. But I did want to address this. Some dude on Apple gave us 3 stars, 3 out of 5 stars, and said that we've, quote, gone corporate. What do you think, Scott? Is that true? Have we gone corporate?
Gone corporate.
What would that be? We read some.
Well, we do work for a large corporation.
That's true.
So maybe we always were corporate. Were we ever the Rogue podcast? I don't know. I think if some higher ups at CBS ever listened to me, they'd wonder what I was doing on this podcast. So maybe in that way, we're not so corporate. I think I keep it pretty casual. Look at me wearing my old school Marlins hat and my old school video game t-shirt here. I don't know if that's corporate or not.
One thing that I will say that Adam and I do things very differently. I try my best to listen back to what Adam has done, and I try to replicate a lot of the great things that I thought he did on this podcast. But one thing that he definitively is better at than me is just like whatever just pops into his head that day that he did. For example, if he saw Peeps when he was at the supermarket, he would bring up Peeps and you guys just talk about Peeps and just go down a rabbit hole of talking about stuff like that. So I could probably do a better job of just bringing random things from my outside life, but I kind of think like people don't care about that, and they just rather talk about fantasy baseball. So.
Well, it's certainly tricky to find the right balance of that. That stuff is fun.
Easter's coming, Scott. Do you have any Peeps takes that you want to update the people with?
Well, look, I'm known for my take on Peeps, which it's actually been misinterpreted. People that have interpreted my take on Peeps that they're like the best thing ever, and I'm obsessed with them. My take is actually that I don't understand why people revile them so when it's basically a marshmallow covered with sugar, and like people are fine with marshmallows. People are generally fine with sugar in their why is this combination sent people over the edge? I don't get it. I think Peeps are fine. I actually think Easter is great for candy. It offers some of the best candy. They're all polarizing, apparently.
The Cadbury chocolate eggs. Those are.
Well, you're talking about the ones with the candy shell on the outside, right?
I believe so.
Those are great for sure. But I think my favorite is the Cadbury cream eggs, which some people think is icky too. I guess I don't know. They get they don't like the consistency of the cream or something. But
I don't know that I've definitely seen the label of the cream egg. I don't know that I've ever had one in my life.
I think it might be my single favorite candy.
Oh,
and then the other one is jelly bean, but specifically black jelly beans. I could do without all the other jelly beans. I actually bought a bag. I found it in the store for the first time of just the black jelly beans, which I think are amazing. But again, some people think they're disgusting. So I don't know. Maybe I have horrible taste in candy, but Cadbury cream eggs, black jelly beans, and Peeps, I'm fine with all of them. I'm good with all of them. Give them to me. I'll eat them up this time of year.
Man.
And
I hope people are listening to this mailbag podcast because these are the takes that they need to hear. And black licorice Easter, jelly beans, Scott. Oof.
Yeah,
those are rough.
You get that tingly feeling on your tongue when you eat them. Oh,
those are polarizing for sure. You either really like those or you absolutely hate them. There is no.
It's so true. When I was checking out at the grocery store with the bag, the lady who was scanning my groceries, she was like, "Where did you find these? I didn't know they have these." Like, I think you and I are the only people who like black jelly beans. And then the bagger person was like, "Nope, me too." So like, it's just like, yeah, it's like, it might be the most polarizing candy out there.
Yeah, you and two other people in a supermarket might be the only three people in all of Florida who like black licorice jelly beans. So I'm definitely out on those.
They don't sell any other color jelly beans, at least not in a typical grocery store by itself.
That's true. They don't just sell orange jelly beans for whatever reason. I'm looking at the cream egg. I don't know, man. The cream looks very questionable. I understand what people are thinking there, and I'm not going to say it. I understand what they're thinking. I wasn't even saying that. I was just, it just doesn't look very appetizing. I don't know.
My first encounter with it was childhood, so obviously my mind didn't go there.
I'm not even. All right, forget it. We've got to move on before I get myself in trouble. The madness is in full swing, and the Eye on College Basketball podcast.
Too corporate, Frank.
The madness is in full swing, and the Eye on College Basketball podcast is your audio guide for the entire NCAA tournament. Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander will continue to provide breakdowns and daily recaps as we enter the second week of the tourney. If you want the best March Madness analysis, follow the Eye on College Basketball podcast anywhere you find this podcast. If you are watching on the video side, don't go anywhere. If you are listening to the podcast, we're going to take a quick break. But when we return, we have Fantasy Justice for All. So last week, Scott, I did the mailbag with Chris, and we debuted a new segment called Fantasy Justice for All. And of course, you were around for regulators. Since then, we haven't been able to do regulators because for copyright purposes. And Adam on the football side has gone to the fantasy cops. So basically, I just blended the word fantasy in with the Metallica album and Justice for All. And I thought it made sense. Fantasy Justice for All. So that's what I've come up with. And for this, this is, if you have a non-fantasy related question, if you have a commissioner question, or just any type of league rules or anything shady going on in your league, just email us in and drop the word Fantasy Justice in the subject line, and we will get to your question. And also, Scott, whenever I am getting ready to read a Fantasy Justice question, we have this little soundbite. Some nice little epic music. It's like we are getting ready to judge you for what is about to happen. So
that music sounds a little corporate to me, Frank.
Yeah, that is. I just realized I wrote from Atlanta. So it's from somebody in Atlanta. I will find out your name in just a second. Pull this up. Fantasy Justice for All from Jake in Atlanta. Okay, so bear with me a little bit here. My home league with all my high school buddies is a head-to-head points league with up to 3 optional keepers. We did not play last year, and the year before that, I was the runner-up. Therefore, I pick 11th in the first round and second on the turn. Yes, Well, the commission says that only starts in round 4. First 3 picks I'll pick at the end, 4th round 2. So if I keep 0 players and another team keeps 0 players, they will pick in front of me rounds 1 to 4, even though neither of us are keeping a single player. When I bring this up to the commission, he says it's my choice to not keep anyone, so it's fair that I pick last. First, oh my God, this is all over the place. 4 most important. Technically, if everyone selects 0 keepers, the entire league, save one team, will pick ahead of me 4 consecutive rounds to start the draft and completely tank my season before the first pitch is ever thrown. He also says the app will not let him start the snake in round 4, either snake or none at all. I told him there's enough tools out there to make the draft work however we want. This cannot be the first time this issue has come up. Thanks for regulating. Although it's whatever, fantasy justice for all.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on here. It's kind of a convoluted question, but yeah, I mean, it definitely seems weird that why don't they just use a snake type of, even if there are keepers involved, I don't understand why that would change things, right? It's weird.
Well, I mean, if these are the rules for the league, the 2 participants in the championship game, I guess, they have to pick at the end of every round the following year. I mean,
that's a little mean. I mean, even if it was the first round, right? Say you finish in second place, you have to pick 11th out of 12. And if you win the league, you have to pick 12 out of 12. It should still snake, right? I mean, that's kind of...
I mean, not if they don't want it to. I'm fine with it. I mean, I understand the rationale for it. You're trying to encourage parity. And I actually play in a league like that, one of my score sheet leagues. It's just the champion, but he drafts last in every single round the following year while everyone else gets to snake. So it's not unheard of. Mm-hmm. If the commissioner's springing this rule on you for the first time this year, I could understand being miffed by that. But if it's the way it's always been, I don't really see a problem with it. As far as setting up the draft goes, you can set up a draft so that you set the draft order every single round. You don't have to commit to snake or not. You can customize every pick in your draft in terms of what order it happens. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. No, I agree with, okay, if this is how the league was set up, sure, like you should go with it. You should know the rules by now. But it kind of sounds to me like this guy is changing things out of nowhere.
Well, if that's what happened, I didn't necessarily read that from this, but if that's what's happening, I could understand being upset about that. Ultimately, unless you and a bunch of other people badger the commissioner and he changes it, that I don't think there's much you can do about it. But I could see being upset about that if the year you do well is the year he decides to make this change.
Yep, rules are rules. If this was in place, then you got to play with it. If this commissioner is just springing it on you, then I say you all revolt against him. Boom, fantasy justice. Emails, fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. This one's from Adam. As an expansion team entering into an already established 10-team 5x5 Roto League, I've accepted I won't be competing for the next couple of years while I stockpile young starlets. However, my main question comes down to the first pick of the upcoming draft. Should I opt for slugging, like Rafael Devers, or pitching, like Lucas Giolito? Yes, those are the top 2 players available. Things are going to be rough. Which would be better to build around for the next 4-ish years? Additionally, do you have any super hot young sleepers I should be targeting? I am in a unique position where I can comfortably reach, say, for someone like Gavin Lux, while other guys are still grabbing players to compete, like Paul Goldschmidt. So first question, Scott, Devers or Giolito, if you are in a keeper league and looking for someone who's going to be the better one over the next 4 years, and some young hot sleepers.
Well, I value somebody like Lucas Giolito more, but if you're thinking long term, it's harder to say that a Giolito is going to remain a Giolito than a Devers is going to remain a Devers. But this is a 10-team league. Very shallow.
It's Roto, by the way.
Still, very shallow.
Mhm.
I haven't like I don't really see myself ever going like the long-term rebuild route in a 10-team league. I just think I have enough confidence in myself to assemble a competitive team on the fly, regardless of what hand I'm dealt. So if I were you, I wouldn't go the route you're suggesting here, and picking up a lot of prospects or less than established players so that you can hope to compete in 2 or 3 years. I mean, if it was like a 24 team league, okay, I understand that. But 10-team league, like there's half of everybody's roster is going to turn over before the end of the season, if not more than that. So, like, I don't think you need to pigeonhole yourself into that plan.
Pigeon your hole.
Pigeon your hole.
Oh man, you can tell we are just losing it, man. And the baseball season hasn't even started yet. A few younger names, though, if you just wanted to, that I could see moving up a couple of rounds in value over the next couple of years. Andrew Vaughn, we've been talking about a ton recently. I wouldn't mind reaching on someone like him. Alex Kirilloff, we were excited about, still are, but he's not going to start the season with the Minnesota Twins. Nick Senzel, someone who's getting a lot of hype right now with the Cincinnati Reds. Those were 3 hitters that I could see emerging and being drafted much higher in drafts next year. This next one's from Colin. One thing I don't think is spoken about enough is how your in-season strategy plays into your draft strategy. For example, I play in a 6x6 category keeper league with quality starts and OPS as the added categories, and I feel fine completely punting saves and stolen bases in my draft with plans to either pick these up off the waiver wire or trade future draft picks for those categories if I am in contention down the stretch. Shouldn't this be an important factor going into draft day?
Yeah, it's an important factor. I mean, I don't know that we've necessarily addressed that as a topic specifically, but it's kind of folded into all of our draft analysis. Like, obviously I've talked before about how if it comes to it, I'm okay coming out of a roto draft without any saves because I know there are going to be tons emerging on the waiver wire over the course of a season. I think that's harder to do with steals because the kind of steals you're going to find on the waiver wire might be from very bad hitters overall. So it'd be difficult to slot that into your lineup without sacrificing in other areas. So I don't know that I'd recommend it for that category, but for saves, I think that's the one category you can do it with. But I mean, even what I was saying about head-to-head points leagues earlier, drafting all the high-end starting pitchers until they're gone. That's because I know I'm going to be on top of things on the waiver wire, and I'm going to snag a bunch of hitters who nobody saw coming at the start of the year, and I'm still going to end up with a quality lineup that way. If that's not you, if you're not gonna operate that way, then you got to be a little more balanced from the get-go. So yeah, it factors into all of it.
This is more about you, the listener, right? So this comes down to what kind of manager you are. And if you've played fantasy baseball in the past, you might have an inkling into what your strengths and what your weaknesses are. And I would say play into your strengths, right? If you know that you are good at finding saves and steals on the waiver wire or finding trades, buy low trades for those type of players, then sure, you can come out of the draft punting those things and you can build up an awesome starting pitching staff and you can have all this power. And then if you want to trade off later on in the season because you're leading in those categories in roto to try and acquire some saves or steals, then sure, you can go after that. But it's really hard for us to specifically talk about something like this because every fantasy manager is different. I mean, if you've played ever, you should kind of have an idea of what your strengths and weaknesses are. So I think ultimately, we do our best to analyze each player and say what they provide. And after that, you should be able to kind of form your own strategy based on what type of fantasy manager you are. This one's from Jack Boyce. Some puns. So if there's a player that hasn't really had that much of that hasn't played that much, shouldn't it be a small stamp full size?
Maybe.
I should have had the sound effect ready. Also, Scott should name his next cat Jose or Kitty.
I don't think there's going to be a next cat.
Have you ever had?
Hopefully, I live a long life and opportunity to change the mind. But I'm not really a pets person. It was my wife's cat. I inherited it by I should call him a him. I'm enough of a pets person to at least call him a him instead of an it. I inherited him by marrying my wife. But I think once we started having kids, like even the pet thing got kind of, she's kind of over it too. She's meeting her nurturing needs with the children. And so I don't know, she doesn't seem motivated to get another one either.
Yeah. So. I've pretty much gone the opposite route, Scott. I've opted to stay away from the kids route for now. And I got a cat. So I didn't name it Jose or Kitty or Jose or Kitty, but
cats are a lot easier.
Cats or dogs? Which one do you like more, Scott?
Dogs.
Boo.
Dogs are more work though. So
yeah, they are.
Yeah.
No, I realize this is kind of this is an Azer take. This is a Stanfield take, but I am big on cats over dogs. Cats are more self-sufficient. They don't require as much work. Sure, they're not as like cuddly and playful and stuff, but whatever, man. I mean, it's still a pet. You could have fun and whatever. I don't know.
You can pet it.
You can pet it. There you go. You can cuddle with your cat. That
hops in your lap when you're watching TV.
Sure. This next one's from John. I'm in a Roto 5x5 keeper league. 5 keepers. It resets after 5 years. That reset is this year. I have the 3rd pick. All the Dynasty Top 300 lists say some version of Ronald Acuna, Fernando Tatis, and Juan Soto. I'm tempted to ignore all and go with Mookie Betts because he is the only one of the 4 with a track record. Thoughts?
It's fine. I think you can make the case for any of those 4 at the top. In fact, I think I have Betts too behind Acuna myself. So
I mean, if you knew that you were only drafting for 5 years, Scott, you would really take Mookie Betts for the next 5 years over Fernando Tatis or Juan Soto? Because I wouldn't. I think
it's only 5 keepers for 5 years. It's not this is your team for 5 years.
Sure, but wouldn't you rather keep Juan Soto for the next 5 years? I would say that towards the end of that 5-year run, Juan Soto and Tatis are probably going to be better than Mookie Betts.
I mean, but Betts is going to be what, 32, 33?
Yeah. He's not going to run that much at that point, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be me, but I don't think it's crazy, I guess is more the tact I'm taking here. If I think it's a reasonable pick to make, but I get what you're saying. 5 years from now, a lot's going to be different. So it's always difficult to predict that far ahead, but it's more likely that Acuna and Tatis especially are still contributing steals, and maybe Soto as well.
So if you had the 3rd pick, Scott, and it was, say it's just Betts versus Soto, who are you taking?
In this,
yep,
with the hope of keeping him for 5 years?
Yep.
I would take Soto.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I would as well. And if it's Tatis, I would take Tatis there. This next one's from Blaine. Great to trade in an 11-team Dynasty Roto League. I give up Bo Bichette. I get Aaron Nola, Yordan Alvarez, Keston Hiura. 11-team Dynasty Roto.
Oh, I mean, gosh. I would trade Bichette straight up for Nola. So, well, maybe not in Dynasty, but yeah, I mean, adding Alvarez in there, yeah, that's a good trade for you. It's an A.
Yeah, that is an A+. That is a slam dunk. I love it. This one's from Brian. I've listened faithfully this season, and if I have learned anything, it's that 2 of the 3 of you love getting that top 3 starting pitcher in the top part of the draft. I'm picking 8th, and the only way I'm getting one of those guys is if they do not listen to the podcast as much as I do. Assuming those top 4 outfielders are gone, Acuna, Trout, Betts, and Soto, I have been looking at either Tatis or Freddy Freeman. Regarding Tatis and Freeman specifically, I have almost wanted to grab Freeman over Tatis because I don't think there are really any first basemen to be excited about. Say in the top 5, Cody Bellinger, if you assume health, and the head is on right, being the one exception. The top 5 shortstops all seem to have great potential, and maybe I can get one in the 3rd round. Am I overthinking this? Tatis could return top 3 fantasy numbers, but hasn't had the track record. Freeman has been as steady as you can get, and nobody wants to screw up the early round picks. Does not say what format.
Well, the format makes a difference because if it's a head-to-head points league, I have no problem with you taking Freeman over Tatis. I might do it myself, but if it's a categories league, specifically like a 5x5 that weighs stolen bases, 20% for your hitters. I think you got to take the stolen bases. I think you are overthinking it.
Yep, I would agree with that assessment. If you really want Freeman in a points league, no issue with it. I think it's close enough where you can make the argument. But any type of categories league, I would go with Tatis. This next was from Blake, Dear Kelly, John, and Laird. John? Kelly, John, and Laird?
The only Laird I'm thinking of is Gerald Laird, a former catcher.
I have nothing. I cannot. Nope, I've got nothing. I was Googling it. Can't find anything. I'm going into my 9th year in a roto league with OPS instead of batting average. I've always taken a simple approach that power hitters get a slight bump in this format. For instance, Joey Gallo is better than he would be in a league with batting average. I love you all, but I'd like to hear Scott explain how this draft strategy would change with OPS instead of batting average. Take it away, Scott.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he pretty much nailed it. There are a lot of guys that we expect to have a terrible batting average who are monster sluggers who suddenly look a lot more valuable in this format. Conversely, some batting average specialists who we don't expect to do much slugging would lose a lot of value. I'm trying to think of a good example top of mind. Well, certainly somebody like Nick Madrigal or
David Fletcher.
Yeah, those are kind of the most extreme examples.
But even someone like Michael Brantley or Alex Verdugo probably lose some value.
Yeah. And, I'm thinking like DJ LeMahieu, I'm sure his OPS, I guess 2 years ago, his OPS was in the mid 800s, right? So that might drop him a little bit. We're expecting him to perform more like that. No, it's 893 2 years ago. It's still pretty good.
Yep.
And then obviously over 1,000 last year. So, I mean, you could look at Joey Gallo getting an upgrade makes sense. Jorge Soler makes sense. I think you got the right idea here.
Yep. Kyle Schwarber, I think, gets a boost here. Jock Peterson, just players in that mold who hit for a lot of power. Even Max Kepler could be solid OPS bat as well. Jesse Winker. Anyone else? Aaron Hicks, definitely going to have a high OBP, and obviously that contributes to OPS as well. This next is from Mark. We keep hearing about how starting pitcher innings will be so low this year and valuable for owners. Kohei Arihara, who is a starting pitcher for the Texas Rangers, put in a normal workload last year when he was in Japan. Should he be talked about more? What do you think, Scott? I think I saw he pitched 139 innings last season. So, I mean, he is conditioned or more than other starting pitchers. I don't know that he's good, but.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, it's got to be good for those innings for you to care about those innings. I see what you're saying. I don't put much value in it. There are going to be, the fact he threw 139. I don't think it might give him a leg up over somebody like Corbin Burns, but for most of the pitching crop who are more established than that, I think they're going to be able to exceed 150 at least. And they'd be just as likely to do that as Arihara. And, I don't have a great feeling about Arihara. He wasn't much of a strikeout pitcher in Japan. He hasn't looked particularly good this spring. I see him as pretty fringy, if even that.
Mm-hmm. So far in 9 innings pitched for Arihara in the spring, he's allowed 3 earned runs with 5 strikeouts to just 1 walk. But I think he had a either simulated game or a B game where he got destroyed, and that's not being factored into his numbers here. So, yeah, I'm not sure that he's very good either, but maybe he'll be an innings eater for the Texas Rangers. This one's from Ryan. Dear Buckner, Merkel, and Snodgrass.
Those are really distinctive names. I feel like we should be able to figure this out, but
sounds like something we should know.
You gonna Google that? I'll Google that.
No, I'm currently. Oh, these are sports blunders, I think. Bill Buckner Fred Merkle and Fred Snodgrass. I think so. That's what we'll go with. Sure.
I don't know Merkel and Snodgrass. Sorry.
This is the final year of my 12-team head-to-head categories league. Another one. This is interesting. So I have a win now attitude and am not concerned with future value. Categories include runs, home runs, RBI, stolen bases, Ks, and OBP, pitching, saves, Ks, holds, ERA, whip, and quality starts. Okay, you are keeping a lot of people, so I'm not going to read that. My pitching is weak, so I intend to use my first 2 to 3 picks on starting pitchers. I do have concerns about the quality of starting pitchers out there since each team is keeping up to 12 players. All right, so I can only keep 3 of the following. Oh, wow. This is crazy. So someone sent this as an Apple Podcast review question, and we already answered
it's the same question. Yeah,
I pulled it from an email, too.
It's the Kyle Tucker in round 3, Patrick Corbin in, I thought it was 22 before, but now he says round 21, and Sonny Gray in round 10. It was that one. Yeah.
That's what we'll go with. This one's from Robert.
I like that the rest of your team is good, though. And now that I know that, I was kind of ragging on you before.
Yeah, that helps for sure. This one's from Robert. Hey, Wanda, Thor, and Hulk.
We know them.
Those are Rugrats, of course. Keeper league, 6 major league players, and you keep 8 minor league players. I give up Charlie Blackmon, Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bassett, Kyle Wright, and a 2022 4th-round pick. I get back Alex Kirilloff, Andrew Vaughn, Hyunjin Ryu, and Marco Gonzalez.
I like it.
Yeah, so that's Blackmon, Rizzo, Bassett, Kyle Wright, who just got optioned by the Atlanta Braves, and a 4th-round pick. Rizzo obviously still has a good amount of value. Charlie Blackmon, I don't know.
Look, the way I break this down is he's getting Hyunjin Ryu and Marco Gonzalez back. I think Hyunjin Ryu and Marco Gonzalez for the 2 good players he's given up, Charlie Blackmon, Anthony Rizzo. I think that would be a satisfactory trade as it is. And then it just so happens the other 2 players he's getting back are huge prospects, Andrew Vaughn and Alex Kirilloff. So I think it's a pretty easy deal.
This one's from Jeff in Cedar Rapids. I'm curious to know how someone should approach prospects in redraft leagues. When Carlos Correa came up, the guy who won my league drafted him somewhere around pick 100, which was considered a reach at that point, but his team went on fire once Correa got the call up. Noting this, I picked Lucas Giolito and Trey Turner off of the waiver wire. The next year, I realized they are both fantasy studs now. They were not there in their rookie years. Both struggled. Vowing never to make the same mistake again, I dismissed Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna their rookie years, and that proved to be a mistake. The next year, I toyed with the idea of drafting Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and decided I wasn't willing to pay the price, at least not in this format. That proved to be wise. How do you determine if a prospect is going to be a potential league winner, like Albies, Acuna, and Correa, or in need of maturing, like Lucas Giolito, Trey Turner, and Vladimir Guerrero?
Well, I don't think I think you're taking a blanket approach here when it's more of a case-by-case basis thing, for one thing. For another thing, it is difficult to tell that with any real accuracy who's going to be the guy who takes off right away and who isn't. I look at things like plate discipline. I look at the way the organization talks about the player, what some of the scouting reports say. I look at that kind of stuff and make a determination from that. But it's kind of an educated guess. Really what it comes down to for me when I say don't make it a case-by-case, do make it a case-by-case thing, is what your level of investment is going to look like. So if memory serves, Ronald Acuna was going in like the round 8-9 range when heading into his rookie season. When Vladimir Guerrero, I saw him get pulled up to round 2 in some leagues. So it's a big difference what you're sacrificing to take the chance on the rookie. This year, somebody like Andrew Vaughn, I find the price tag to be quite reasonable. Getting him like in the round 15 range potentially. So that's easy for me to do because the upside, the down, there's not much risk with the downside at that point. The upside, of course, could be very rewarding. So more than who that actual player is, it's more about what you sacrifice to get him and whether the reward outweighs the risk at that point. I suspect Lucas Giolito and Turner, when they got called, yeah, I mean, you said you picked them up off the waiver wires. No harm in that. It didn't work out. You moved on.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime you see a big prospect called up during the season, you should pretty much always make a play for him. I'm not saying blow half your fab budget for him, but, take a shot at picking him up just to see what happens, because a lot of times they can become league winners.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, we've talked about this before, Scott, the top prospects in baseball this year are going later in redraft leagues than ever before. Jared Kellnick of the Seattle Mariners is going right around pick 197, according to Fantasy Post. Wander Franco down at 277. We don't know when these guys are going to be up, but we feel pretty confident we'll see Jared Kellnick in April at some point. Maybe.
Even Wander Franco, even Mackenzie Gore.
Right, yeah.
You don't want to devote 4 bench spots to those guys. I think I am in one league, but it's a pretty big bench. But a bench spot or 2 to see to see how things go for them when they get called up. I think it's likely all of them get called early enough that it'll be worth, at least finding out will have been worth the wait.
Yep. And I would throw, maybe not to the same extent in terms of upside, but I would put Logan Gilbert's name in that mix with the Seattle Mariners. I think we could see him up by the end of April as well. We're going to wrap there. For Scott and Frank, thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again on Monday. Bye-bye.